Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations Radio. This is Steve Matley, your host. Today we are in the studio with CJ Gilbert. He is helping us navigate the jungle that is the internet. And CJ, we kind of started talking on this, but I want to really get into where do we start on this journey of getting our way through the internet and getting a website set up and figuring out where are we supposed to go?
Absolutely. Great question. I love a quote by Lewis Carroll. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else.
That's right.
And that could not be more true when it comes to the internet. So the very first thing that I always talk about when someone says, where do we start? How do we get started? I want to build a new website or I want to fix my old website. What's the first thing we should do? It begins with the two most important questions. And here they are. Number one, what are your primary goals for your website? When I would ask business owners that, I would get a lot of blank looks because it never occurred to them that they could have goals for their website. And if you're listening to this right now and you think, I have no idea what my goals are for my website, that's okay. My intention is at the end of the program, come back to this question. And because of the things that we're going to talk about the rest of the program, that'll give you some ideas for what your goals are. It could be sales. It could be improving your customer service. It could be providing resources and forms. It could be education. It could be entertainment. You know, you want to ask yourself, what do you as a business owner want to get out of your website? And even more, what do you want your customers to be able to get out of your website? So that's the first most important piece.
And so that sounds like that goes to the basics of business planning.
Yes.
As in, because a lot of businesses don't have a business plan, they don't have a strategy, they don't have a mission, a vision, they don't have values, they don't have anything, no action plans. They're just, well, I'm really good at my trade and I might as well do it for myself as opposed to someone else. And they jump in, and what they realize is they left the one position for someone else and took on about 30 positions for themselves.
Exactly.
And they don't really have a plan.
Exactly.
So that would help you out greatly. If they had some concept of what they were doing, it would help you guide the website. And do you have customers that get frustrated with you because you try to put a website together and say, that's nothing like what I wanted, but they never gave you any material to work with?
We want to avoid that if possible, but you're right. If you don't have that plan, it's very easy to get into that situation. So we always try to have this conversation pretty much right away before we even talk about what it's going to cost or what's involved with it. We got to figure out what we're doing.
So you become a business advisor as well as a cyber
advisor. I really do. Yeah.
Okay. And so your second question was?
The second question is, we were talking about, what do we want that website to do for you and what do we want it to do for your customer? The second question is, who is your customer? Who is your target market? And if you can, the more specific you can be, the better results you'll get. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter which specifics that you hone in on, as long as you have some specifics. So for example, do you typically serve more men than women? Do you typically serve more families, more single people? Do the kind of people that you work with, are they more married, single, divorced, transitioning between one of those two? Does the education level matter? Does their financial level matter? Like I mentioned, each business is going to have their own secret sauce for which of those combinations is going to matter to them. But the point is that you figure out which of those pieces are important so you can talk specifically to that customer.
Now, the person that's, when you ask them, and I've heard this before, they say, well, who's your target customer? And they say, everybody.
Right. The problem with that is
You're saying the 15-year-old gamer and the retiree both? Really?
Right.
This is who we're going after?
How do you
fashion
target
model?
A message, right? To both of those.
Yeah, the fashion model and the hard rock miner? Both of them? Really?
It's okay if you have a couple target markets. That's okay, as long as you're clear about, this is my primary target, this is my secondary target, and the more specific you can be, even if you can give that person a name, this helps you in all of your marketing, not just your website, but your email marketing, your social media campaigns, brochures and flyers, and everything else that you create.
So a profile or an avatar of who this customer or this small group of customers is.
Correct. Absolutely. And a lot of people, they're like, but I want to serve everyone. I don't want to cut anyone out. And I say, let's look at it like this. Imagine that you have a bullseye. You have a dartboard on the wall, and I hand you 3 darts, and I blindfold you, and I spin you around in a circle, and I tell you to throw it. How likely is it that you're going to hit the dead center of that bullseye? Probably not too likely. Whereas if I spin you around, but then I point you at the wall that the bullseye is on, you may hit it. You may hit the wall, you may hit whatever, but chances are you're going to come closer to hitting your desired target. Now, the point of this is if you know who your target market is, you can direct your messaging right to that specific person. You're still going to reach the people in that peripheral edge. You're still going to reach the people that resonate with you and that still want to work with you, but it gives you a place to shoot for. It doesn't actually limit who you're going to work with. It clarifies who you work with, and more people will be attracted to you once they feel, oh, that's me. I'm that person you're speaking to.
Yeah, I remember before we got spoiled by GPS. So right now, GPS, the one piece of information you have to give it is where do I want to go?
Right.
And that's what you're talking about. Where do I want to go? Right. Okay, who am I going after? But before that, the system or the map, if it was analog, the Thomas Brothers, or the MapQuest, right?
Right.
MapQuest could tell you, you could tell where you're going, but it didn't know where you were starting from. You had to also tell it where you were. And so you needed to know not only where you're going, you need to know where you're starting from.
Right.
And then once you did that, there is a series of potential paths that could get you there, and you're trying to figure out the optimal path.
Absolutely.
And so I think if people haven't done the basics in their business of figuring out where do I want to end up, maybe, I don't know, not 50 years from now, but where do I want to end up a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Where's that? And who are the people I'm supposed to be there with? And then figure out where am I today?
Right.
Then they can start thinking through the path. And the website is a part of the path to get you from where you are to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And a great thing that you can realize is that your website can grow and change and be modified just like your business is growing and changing and being modified. And all you have to do is get started with whatever you know today and just be open to the fact that it's going to change over the next 3 weeks, months, years, and you'll be able to change the website to modify that. This is much different / better than, 10, 20 years ago, you'd have to get your brochure printed and you had talk about proofreading. You had to make sure every word on that brochure was right, because once you printed out 5,000 or 10,000 of
committed.
them,
That's right.
Exactly right. Yeah. But today, with your website being your online brochure, but I want you to think of it as more than that, when you have something that changes, either because it's a typo, that could be one thing, but maybe your services change, maybe your target market is changing, maybe your location is changing, your website can grow and adapt and improve just like your business.
Well, I just think of even the simple things where one day they change your area code on you. And now if you've got 50,000 print copies sitting in a warehouse that's got that wrong area code on it, do you throw them out? Or do you go through each time you hand one out and mark it out and write it in by hand? That's a problem. And the website's really easy.
Yeah.
You go in and make that change, or call your webmaster to make that change if you're
right.
like me. And I just call my webmaster and say, can you do this for me, please?
That's
Because
right.
I don't want to deal with it. Now, I remember when I was a kid, when you wanted to find something, we didn't go into the computer. We put out this big fat book, right? It doubled as a booster chair sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, the Yellow Pages. And the thing is, as long as they got the right categories, so the same company could have ads in 4 different places in there.
Right.
Right. And so as long as they had the right ad in the right place under the right classification, your customers are probably going to find you.
Right.
Or you put in the newspaper, you put an ad in there in the right section, right?
Sure.
So if I'm selling gym equipment, I'm in the sports section and those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
That's a different world now.
It absolutely
We have
is.
Google instead of Yellow Pages, but Google isn't like the Yellow Pages. I can't just flip and scan through 2 pages of the R's to find what I'm looking for, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. The Yellow Pages were the go-to source. For 150 years, that's the way you did business. You opened up your business, you got in the Yellow Pages. And have you noticed those Yellow Pages getting thinner and thinner and thinner and
They
thinner?
don't really exist anymore?
And they don't really even deliver them anymore. Have you gotten the postcard that says, hey, we still make them. If you want one, we'll bring one to you. Otherwise, use our website.
You probably noticed that you can't pull the Yellow Pages out and stick your 2-year-old on it to bring them up closer to the table, right? Because that's what we used to use those for.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And why is that? It's because we Google it. We all have these. We have these smartphones. We're in front of our laptop. We're at our desk. We're at our computer. So we just flip open Google or one of the other search engines and we type what we're looking for.
And we get one page and we think that's everything. But what we didn't notice at the bottom, it says page 1 of 3,465,000, right?
Yeah. And even that page that you would get those results on, the search engine results page is what we call it, the SERP, that has changed over time too. It used to just be a straight list of websites, and then the advertising appeared above the list of the websites and below it and to the side. And they've taken away some of that because now they've added in the map section. Now the map section appears right at the top.
That's right.
Above the websites. And so what you need to recognize is the yellow pages, what used to be the yellow pages is now online business directories. And there's not just one, there's hundreds of them.
Yeah,
we all know Google, Apple, Facebook, Yahoo, Bing. They all have their own version of these online directories.
And what used to be that big, fat, heavy book now has enough information to fill every library in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you
it's
have
a
to
lot
sort. You
trickier.
have to sort through it. So you are one of those entries in that billions of entries in that list.
That's right.
So that's where you come up with what the keywords and those type of things that you need to rise to the top.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one of the questions I get is, what are keywords? Keywords is whatever you type into Google. If you type it into Google, that's the keywords. Maybe you're looking for, a bagel and a cup of coffee, or maybe you're looking for a particular service or need. Whatever you type in, that's your keywords. And so people say, well, how do I make sure that I get the right keywords on my website? And my advice is never try to trick Google. You don't want to do this thing that they called keyword stuffing. And that sounds delicious, but it's not a side dish. It's when people take their keywords and they just inject it into every place they can. And what you get is you get this website language that's not natural. It does not read like a natural person speaking. And Google is now smart enough to tell that you're trying to trick them by filling up your website with these
and they
keywords.
change their algorithms too.
That's why.
I change it for this month, and 3 months from now, that's obsolete.
Absolutely. But it used to work that way. When Google first came out, it was all about they would count the number of times you use that phrase. And if you use that phrase more than your competitor, you win.
Yeah.
Well, that became a slippery slope as people just started stuffing their keywords more. So now what you really want to do is use that natural language when you're describing your services.
All right, we're going to pick up when we come back from this break and talk about how to use that to create more sales. This is Building Solid Foundations Radio. My guest is CJ Gilbert, and we're talking about all things website and internet for your business, and we'll be right back right after this.